Hey friends, Shane from HowToWrench.com, and I have been dreaming about getting this tool in the How to Wrench workshop for quite some time. I'll show you. I've had a full-size bandsaw, and it takes up so much space that for all the kind of work that I do, finally having one of these Port-a-bands mounted to where I can use it in either flattened positioned like a traditional bandsaw or vertical like this, which this is my preferred method. I just wanted a metal cutting bandsaw forever. In this video, I'm going to show you what Harbor Freight has to offer in their Hercules brand for a corded bandsaw and their mount that works both horizontal and vertical. If you're new to How to Wrench, make sure and take a look at the timestamps if you just want to get to what you're getting to. This video is going to be a long form format where we are going to do beginning to end of the full installation setup, save you a lot of frustrations and hassles around maybe some performance that you would get out of this product if you didn't set it up right to begin with. So we're going to take all the lessons we've learned from others and ourselves and put it here in these timestamps so you can jump into that. I also want to showcase kind of like how we intend to make some improvements with the use of this tool in our shop, so you can fast forward that if you're not interested in that, or if you want to see a shop transform and really good ideas around how to organize that, then grab that timestamp as well. All right, make sure and smash that subscribe button. Really helps us out. Let's go. Finally making a little progress to start working on some of the stuff to move the fab shop to the back garage. And one of the things I'm super excited about is our good old Chicago, Harbor Freight brand little bandsaw. I think I've had that thing for at least 15 years. You'll notice our little Harbor Freight below, that little belt sander. Things are awesome. I have been seeing, let's just hop over here. I've been seeing the new Hercules. It's an 11 amp, which is significantly heavier duty, but more importantly, I've really wanted this setup. This is what I'm 99% interested in, but the fact that I could do either or is super important to me. You could see the fab area I've been trying to set up. Yes, I still have a ton of work to get this part of the garage. The goal is to really, towards the end here, have all the fab tools, got the mill and lathe tucked in the back now, some workspace eventually, and then condense all the welding equipment to a singular cart. That's a goal too, little by little. What I'm really hoping to do here is be able to get rid of that Harbor Freight piece of equipment. So in my particular shop, I don't do really long pieces or don't need to take up this much floor space, but dang, that thing works really good. So I'm hoping that this is the solution. And then you really want to stay tuned to the series of videos I'm going to do on this, because my goal is, I don't know if you've seen where people have taken bench vices and hidden them under the bench. I'm going to see once I get this out, start to get measured up. If it has enough swing, I'm actually going to mount it under the table to where then I can flip it up when I need it. I got to play with that. I'm not sure if that's what's going to happen. I may make some type of slide. I really don't want to marry it to a top of a workbench, and I also don't want to have it hidden to where it's not just really easy to use and really high function. I've thought about putting it on this side if I have to marry it to the table, and see if I get enough room to work in this space. But hey, the things you do when you're working in a small workshop, right? So let me go ahead and start to get this stuff all unboxed. We'll set it up together. I'll use it for the first time and figure out the long-term plan once I see how it all fits. Let me speed this up and not bore you with the unboxing, but I will say incredibly well packaged. But I have to talk about the case for the Port-a-band. That thing is heavy duty, comes with tools you need to maintain it. It also obviously has a manual, but man, it is one heavy duty case with really heavy duty latches. So if I had to transport this, I'd be good to go. You're going to see I didn't waste any time at all to throw the mount on the bench and then hurry up and test out the position that I really desire to use it in. Man, let's get this set up. I can't wait. This Harbor Freight Hercules brand bandsaw mount is universal in nature, meaning that it fits many different brands. I'll show you some of those brackets here in a second. For this full installation, we're going to focus on the corded version of the Hercules bandsaw, but many of the procedures to set up and align and get good cuts will all be found throughout this video. Make sure to look for those timestamps. Let me show you the bracketry. Well, I'll tell you what, impressed already off the get-go. So I opened all this thinking, this would be all the parts I would need for this, but this base here comes with all the brackets to do different models of portable bandsaws. So you can see we have a Hercules, so this is the bracket we're going to use. But if you had a Bauer, that's why it has the Bauer labeled bracketry right there, Harbor Freight's other brand, right? But then it has different brackets on there if you're Milwaukee Geez, what else does it have here? So multiple pages. Then we have DeWalt corded and DeWalt cordless. Man, that fits an amazing amount of stuff. They put a lot of thought into that. So I'm going to move forward then real easily, setting it up for our Hercules. I'm going to go ahead and get the blade on, and there's just some things about this I wanted to point out that are, man, super cool. One thing is it has an LED work light. You can see the LED in there. There's a switch on the top. That is going to be wildly helpful, especially at night. Can be not the best lighting in the back of the shop yet. And then as far as these covers, as a little surprised they didn't take any tools to pop off. You can see that they have a retainer, little notch right there, and then they have a little detent that's going to snap into place too right here. But playing around with this, it wasn't too bad. We'll see if I can do it one-handed, but just get it on there and then pop it in, and then it looks like what I'm going to want to do is that it just clicked into place. I'm going to want to make sure that the retainer is snapped in place. It's there on this one. I'd lift up and then push it back, and then on the opposite side it's right here. Push that, and then they come off really easy. No tools, so that's pretty handy. The other thing while I'm in here, I saw a significant improvement over my old one, but then again, things should change in 20 years, was this brush cleaner on the wheel itself. So that is super freaking rad right there. Just kind of looking around at the bearing setup. So we got a top roller, the side rollers, all this appears to be, well, obviously an adjustable guide plate to set it up how we need it, but let's go ahead and slap a blade in it. Looking at the specifications here, it looks like it takes pretty standard blades here, the 44 and 7/8. The one they sent me was a 24 TPI threads per inch. There's charts all over the internet you can find, but you can see here for soft or thick metal, the 14, and then if you're doing thin or hard metals, you can do the 24 threads per inch. I'll go ahead and install the one they sent me so that we could try it on some different materials to see how it behaves. I'm sure that it's going to work fine. Let's keep going. I'll throw some pointers out there if you've never changed or installed one of these blades before. Like I said earlier, you don't have any tools required to install or remove a blade on this Hercules brand, but you're going to loosen up that tension lever there to the loosest position. Now, some people will recommend wearing gloves. It will be a good idea to protect your hands a little bit better because these can be pretty sharp. And basically just slip it around each of these, I'm going to call them pulleys, and then you're going to slip that blade down in the bearing guides. You got to give it a kind of a little twist there to get it to pop into place. You're going to see me tension the blade with this lever here, so there's a close-up of that. But then I'm going to go ahead before I actually put the covers on and do a real quick lever pull and just make sure that it's riding on the rubber bands of those pulleys. Now, the reason I like to do that is if you didn't have it on there square, something was goofy, it's going to let you find that out before you these plastic covers on that would obviously cut through that. So it's really important that you go ahead and, in my opinion, give it a quick little test run to make sure that it's in place. You're going to notice I'm going to pull that saw away from me so that if it does spring off, it's not going to come at me. But, you know, caution, beware, use your owner's manual, and be safe. To put the pulley covers on, or blade protectors if you will, they really require some attention to what you're doing since no tools are required, so that you make sure and capture them in place. Let me show you up close what I'm talking about. I'm going to fast forward a little bit, let you have a glimpse in the future, but when these covers are installed correctly, because you wouldn't want it to pop off on you during use, you shouldn't be able to bump it and have it fall off. So it's captured by an ear right here on this top one, on the side right here, on the side right here. And the opposite of this, there's a little detent, a little matching ball that tells you that has a hole behind there that falls into. And then real importantly, the ear on here is latched behind here. So to remove it, you lift that up and then just slide the whole thing out. Kind of hard to do one-handed. On the bottom one, simply, you can see it a lot better. It's right here. But yeah, make sure and give those. I found that they can pop off really easily if not installed correctly. But once they're in place and snapped in, they seem to be on there really good. I'm not getting them to fall off there. I went to grab my old one and talk about a reminder from the past and how things change. But you'll notice here that on the original one, they literally had a warning label here when stored for long periods of time to go ahead and release the tension on the blade. And I mean, 20 years ago or so when I was a newer mechanic, I remember grabbing it, hadn't used it in a long time and didn't check that. I forgot that it, you know, the blade was untensioned, right? And so it made a mess, came off, slipped on the pulleys or whatnot. So after that, I made myself a little note here to check that tension as a quick little reminder. So on this new one, I thought, oh, hey, wait a second. They got any labels? Nope, not seeing any labels. Let's see, that little warning, that's pretty small print. Don't see anything there. But I know it's a good idea. So out of curiosity, I went to the manual under the cleaning, maintenance, and lubrication section, and look at what they got right there. If not using tool for long periods of time, remove the blade. So still the good practice, what I'm gonna do is just put a sticker here on either side, maybe one on this plate right here. It's just a quick little reminder that, hey, when not being used, leave the tension off. And then that'll be my little safety measure to engage that blade again. I thought this was pretty cool. The guide plate has 3 quick adjustment positions. So we're here in the top. I'll push in just a little bit, and then we get a second click, push it a little bit, and get a third click to set how deep you want that throat on the blade. I'll just put it all the way up now until we set it up in the mount to see if it has to sit in a certain position. The handle, that nut is captured, so you don't need a wrench, but on this, I'm sure we're gonna get to a point where we need to hold that nut, and it happens to be a 14 millimeter on the Hercules. Okay, it says just put that hand tight. That's where we are now. What's next? One thing I absolutely love are well-wrote manuals, and since I work in the space of writing manuals and reviewing manuals quite frequently for other people, this thing had a great call out to save you some trouble later on where you start getting some crooked cuts or, you know, life isn't good. So it tells you before you proceed to make sure that the upper and lower arms are level with each other. And one thing I noticed right when I took it out of the box is that this was not level. I noticed that this side was lower than this side. And as I take a look at this, you could see where we are there and where we are there. So this thing has shifted around some, so we want to loosen those up and set those as straight as we can. It's just going to save you time later on if you're trying to get really super precise with the chop saw part of it. If you're going to use it like I am for the upright bandsaw, it's not going to matter so much. But for this part, it's really worth the time. Good job, Harbor Freight, on adding that call out in there first. All right, let me show you how I'm going to do this. Since my worktop isn't level and the ground may not be level, but what I want to do is make sure that when I level this one can be level, and I don't have my digital degree one handy, so I'm just going to use these wood shims, get this in here until my bubble is level. Trust me on it. Okay, and then I'll do the same back here, and this bracket will be pretty even across there is what I noticed. I'll just switch this back here. This one didn't need much right there. Really just trying to see how this seems to fit on here. It looks like they did a pretty good job as they jigged this up, welding it. Go ahead here, just snug it. What you gotta be careful of is as you're tightening this, is 15 millimeter by the way, it can want to lift it. And when I took it out of the box, this side was way up, right? So probably as they mass produced it and cranked it, it just came up. Okay, so level there. Level there, I'm loving it. I'm gonna go ahead here and crank these down now, but I'm gonna be supporting this from lifting. And double check my work, level, and level, okay? Now when I take these out, I could go back to this, and it's gonna be slightly off in the level on both of them, but it should be the same amount of slightly off. Makes sense, but if you really want to be able to see it dead in the middle, that's the way you can do it with those wood shims. All right, let's go ahead and keep getting this together. So the instructions tells you to set it on its end like this. You're gonna feed the cord down through the back here after you've done that leveling step. And you wanna make sure on the cord here just not to pinch it. So have it on its, in between the feet. And then the way they show to do it is you can go like this. Careful with the sharp blade there. And basically just sneak through like this, twist it sideways, come down. What I found is easier is to go ahead and just set it back down for now. Set the blade right on through. And then pull this up. You'll find a sweet spot here. And then it's just a little bit easier to work with as far as gravity. Put these two mounts in. Remember, if your handle was too tight from putting it on too tight earlier, you want to loosen up. You want everything to float right now so that we can get it nice and centered. Make sure that we're loose. It's a 14 on the handle. Gonna make sure I'm loose. Just want that to be able to rotate a little bit more, just to be safe. All right, next thing I'm doing is I'm kind of getting this set up to where the clamps are in the handle, and then I'm also going to be trying to get the blade in the center. Let me show you up close. So as I try to do this one-handed, I'm kind of basically twisting this and moving it around. What I'm really doing is getting that blade, see if I can zoom down in there, in the center of this assembly like that, right? So I'm gonna do everything I can. Here the front would need to come over, the back could be tweaked, but all the adjustments I'm gonna do next are to get that blade in the center of that slot for when you cut, it goes below it, nice and straight. And this is all mostly important if you're gonna use it as a lowering bandsaw to make your cuts. This part's important. Everything you do at this point is just going to be to get it snug, because there's multiple areas that we need to align to get this to work at its best capabilities. So we're trying to get that blade centered like we talked about, and these two threaded screws are going to move that back end forward and around. The two front bolts will move the front back and around and adjust for any twists. But another really important area to set this saw up is to get it to where the trigger will fully trigger in the on and off position. Let me go into a little more detail about that before we do the final tightening of everything. So it pivots on this side, then it locks into this little deal here, and then when you go off, it'll spring load this direction off because the switch will push it off. Pretty ingenious little setup here. So they tell you to have it in the on position. Oops. By the way, it needs to go in here. And I need to find the slot. Looks like hole number 3 for me. It's gonna do it. I could see where if this trigger isn't working or is a problem, you may have to tweak the saw and move it around till you can get one of these holes to line up too. Let me show you what's going on just in case you run into this, okay? So here's again how this is gonna work. That's in the off position. The switch itself is going to throw this lever off, right? So when I want to run the saw, I'm going to have it hooked on that arm. But what you'll notice here is that I don't have a fully depressed switch, right? Like it's not as much as it can be. And the problem is I can't go to another hole because then it's too tight and it just doesn't work. I basically need this to line up across from each other in the position that I want to have with a fully depressed switch. But the good news is I've got some room in here, okay? So we can play with this. I can move this around. That's the whole point of fine tuning this, is just making everything find its sweet spot. So I'm gonna go ahead and move that up and we'll get full engagement of the switch. I'll make all these final adjustments and then we're gonna put the stabilizer bar on and the safety chain and test everything out. Next, they tell you to loosen up these arms and make the bandsaw parallel with the arm. You'll notice here that there's some room to go up and down. It's more pronounced if you don't have the chain on here, but there's a lot of room there. So just gonna go ahead here, eyeball this. There's parallel. Now if I did all my distances right, I should be still able to dial this in the center. All right, let me bring you in, check this out. Nice. A little hard to film, but that baby's nice and centered. Sweet, that worked out well. This is nice and level like they've asked for. Before we start making some cuts, let's actually see how parallel our blade is to the table. I'm going to take a little square here, and I'm going to really dial that blade in 90 degrees to this setting right here. So I'm going to start to really play around with all of this. We don't know how perfect this is or anything, but now's the time, since I'm doing all this little tweaking, that I can go ahead and try and get that blade exactly 90 to this plate. And shockingly, it's pretty damn good. It's very hard to film, I apologize, but once again, I want it straight along here, and I want that blade edge straight along here. If it's further away on either side, I can pull that in to get that straight, to get it 90 degrees to the cutting surface. That's what I'm gonna do. Let's dial this baby in. So we know that this is a 90 degree edge. I'm gonna try and just go right off the powder coat and the metalled edge here to this edge right here. And what I'm looking for is, do I have any like noticeable rocking? Because right now I'm against this hard stop where the slot doesn't let me go any further. So that's it. Meaning this zero line, what I'm looking to see is that truly zero, right? So as I go here, okay, and I just kind of tighten those two up, okay. That is really, really, really good, which means I can trust that mark, okay? So let's see, in the manual, you use the Harbor Freight clamping setup like this to clamp down your material, which I thought was actually kind of rad way to already have the slot in there. This is for different models of bandsaws, because I see the threads right here, another zero, and this just to move over. These are just a bunch of washers I have cut off for my drill press, but these are only like $8 or $9. I'll put a link below to that as well. But that's gonna be a great way to trust these zero marks. You'd want to do the same thing if you move yours forward. Let's go to 30 degrees. 30 degrees. Yeah, nice. 45. 45. And dead on. 60. There's 60. And 60. Man, that is sweet. Super accurate. Let's see how our switch works. Okay. Let's cut something. Like butter. Like butter. Now this isn't a perfect edge, right? But just for some comparison, of that cut edge, look at that. We set that baby up nice. That is gonna make some nice straight cuts. That's cool. That is cool, cool, cool. So now what we want to do is we want to, all right, now let's set it up for the tabletop mount. What I am most excited about, so you take your shock absorber off here. Oops. So I'm just making sure I got all 4 feet on there. All right, I want to unplug it. I want to figure out what I got to do. I got to get this off. To get this bracket off, what you can do is move the release to a position where you can access the holes, or like on that first one, just get it into a position where then you can see it and you'll be able to get those fasteners out. Once you get these 2 fasteners out, then you can pull this out. These 2 short ones you're going to set aside and leave with your bracket in case you ever intend to use it if you go back to the other way of using the saw. And to tell you the truth, I'm not sure that you need this at all if you're going to be using this mount. This is more for like if you're just going up against a pipe like you see in this photo, and it's a guide to not have the saw jerk on you. But when it's orientation, you're going to be clamped and secured against here. So like I said, I'm not even sure that that's needed. Be interesting to see what your thoughts are. Comment below if you have an opinion on whether you just leave that off using this stand. All right, to finish assembly on this though, we need to go ahead and take this off. You'll notice there's notches on one side and not the other. That's the detents that lock in. Go ahead and pull that out. And now what we're gonna do is put this back in here in this guide. I'm just gonna put this back in the same orientation with the notches facing out like it would be if I had the handle on there, if you will. And then it says here to adjust this as far out as you can for a maximum working surface. Then the other thing you want to do is get it centered in the blade. Now, since you're freehanding stuff here, there's no alignment you have to worry about except for the fact that you wouldn't want the blade cutting your table. Another thing I wanted to note as far as the saw itself, it does have a variable speed trigger you can see here. So let's go ahead and show you. That's number 1. All right, excited to have that adjustability too, because we know when we're cutting metal, a lot of times we'll go to a slower speed, so way cool. Let's cut a little project here. Got this 1.5-inch piece of pipe. One of the first projects I need to jump on this bandsaw, using it in the vertical position, was to go ahead and build this block off plate for a fuel sending unit so I could line a tank. I'm going to have a video coming out on that. But the ability to follow the contour of that shape that I needed to get a lot closer without having to do an excessive amount of grinding is just one of the capabilities I'm really excited to use on all kinds of materials. This is a cutting board material. It's about a little bit thicker than 1/4 inch material. Being able to do metal or anything and just get it closer to the shape and size to begin with is something I'm really looking forward to in the metal world. I'll have many full videos coming out on all the different uses I'm going to be using this tool on. Excited. Well, friends, there you have it. Man, I just am so glad I took the time to start setting all this stuff up. You could see what fast work that made versus before clamping stuff in a vise and trying to use my hand one and cut stuff or saws. I've just needed to get this done a long time ago. I'm enjoying fabrication side of things, and I want to finish getting this whole area set up. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. Like I said, I'm hoping to get some of these tools out on these swing out style mounts so that they're easy to access. This is something I even just did recently that I think is great. I got this metal file cabinet off Amazon to put a bunch of the different cutting pliers, cutting scissors, some measuring tools, some other measuring tools, a bunch of different styles, clamps and vice grips, because I was just not wanting to take up all the wall stuff for space I just don't use as frequently. This bigger stuff, I don't have a choice. I'm gonna have to put it up there, but that was a super rad thing. And on Amazon, if you've never seen it before, you can look for the used section inside that ad. I got this as a used open box item, saved myself something like $30. Matter of fact, it even came faster than if I would have waited for the new one. So that's another little trick if you're doing purchases that way. But the number of Harbor Freight tools that I used in this video were wild. From the little belt sander, there's the 1-inch one, there's the 4x6 Harbor Freight one. There's the little Harbor Freight. This is super rad what I did with this one. I can't wait to get this cleaned out. I'm almost embarrassed to have you in here, but these don't come with a wire wheel. I mounted this up with a wire wheel, made my own little adapters and whatnot. And what's so rad about that is this is the best little bolt cleaner you're ever going to find, because it's not near as aggressive as like the bigger wheel. So this is literally just a bolt cleaner for me. I mean, very rarely do I use the stone, but it's there if I needed it, That sure was awesome today. And then what else? That's a Harbor Freight pipe bender I'm going to mount. I got my old Harbor Freight stuff. It's funny, I guess, Harbor Freight anvil. It's funny how so many people looked around their shop and thought how many times Harbor Freight saved the day, whether financially or access to quick solutions. And I think it'd surprise you. Walk around your garage and see what you all find in there. Hey, I'm looking forward to doing more for Harbor Freight. They do not pay anybody to do reviews. They did send me the saw. Kind of thank you for what I did in the industry while I was in the teaching world, as being a real game changer for encouraging students to be mindful for where they spend their money. All right, my friends, if you haven't done so, make sure and like, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned for the future videos to build this shop out. Man, we love you being on here. Make it a great day, and as always, keep wrenching.